From the heart of Silicon Valley in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, I am Sudipto Chatterjee and this is Economically Speaking with Atanu De. On Economically Speaking, we talk about economic topics and how they affect our world. So Atanu, how are you doing? I know you're still spending time in India. Where are you?
Well, today I'm in Bombay and yesterday I was in Bangalore, which as we all know, it's the IT capital of India or the Silicon Valley of India. Although Bangalore is not a valley, I will presume it's a plateau, isn't it?
Well, if nothing else, the weather compares with the Silicon Valley here. So I would definitely vote for it to be if not Silicon Valley, at least IT capital. But then IT is information technology, right? And then anybody with a computer is wise and knowledgeable and has a lot of information. So when we say IT, is it the same as technology that we have been talking so far, or is there a difference?
Yes and no. Technology is technology. As we have discussed previously, technology is know-how, how to do something. So it's the ideas that are at the core of all technologies. Information technology, of course, has something to do with information. And as you just said, you said that somebody with a computer is wise and knowledgeable. Now we need to understand the distinction between knowledge and information.
Yes.
Information is not knowledge. And although knowledge does require, its foundation is information. As you are in the information technology industry, what is at the basis of all the computing that we do?
See, this is the part of the conversation where I feel like I'm redefining what I already know and I'm trying to articulate it. So this is how even our first podcast began. To answer your question, as somebody who has studied computer science, I would say bits, ones and zeros.
Yeah. Now, ones and zeros are just bits of information. That is, the smallest bit of information is a 1 or a 0. The answer to a question which has a dichotomous answer is either yes or a no. So 0 and 1. So what is it that distinguishes information from knowledge? Now, if I tell you that the answer is yes, that is information that I could have conveyed to you. Information that I could have conveyed to you somehow through some channel. I could have sent you an email saying yes, or spoken the words over a phone line or in person. Now this information then gets translated into your brain and you get to know it. You know the answer. And that is knowledge. So knowledge is something that is resident in a person's brain, in the wetware. It is not in the hardware of a computer. Information is, on the other hand, resides on the hard drive of a computer, on a piece of paper, in books, and in all kinds of other media. But information and knowledge are completely different. Now, it is true that today we have a lot of information, but that does not mean we have a lot of knowledge.
So I want to understand the words and the terminology here.
Okay.
I understand the distinction between knowledge being something that you accumulate in your brain and you have an understanding of something.
Yeah.
Information is also an intangible or a vague term as opposed to data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I say that this book has some information, the words printed on it are just data, but the information is the meta knowledge, so to say. And I know I'm confusing words here again, but there is data on a book that says, okay, the sun rises in the east and there are the planets and the planets revolve around the sun.
Yeah.
The information is that such a solar system exists, and then there's knowledge again which is pretty synonymous, that I understand there's a solar system that exists. How would you differentiate between these three terms?
Yeah, so suppose, let me first define what is information so that we have at least a starting point. Hal Varian, who's a professor of economics, used to be at UC Berkeley, and now I think for some time, I think he has been the chief economist at Google. You've heard of this company, Google, I suppose. You work for them.
Yes, I have been trying to arrange a meeting with myself and him for a while, but it's harder.
So Hal Varian had a very concise and a beautiful, very, very elegant definition of what information is. And so get ready for the definition that Hal Varian gave. Information is anything that is potentially digitizable. Every word of this simple definition is important.
Wow.
It is anything that is potentially digitizable. We are not saying that whatever has been digitized is information. That is, but anything which is even potentially digitizable is information. Words on a piece of paper, it is digitizable. Pictures are digitizable. What I am talking about right now, our audio is digitizable. It's all information. Okay? Now, is a chair information? No, a chair cannot be digitized. You can take its measurement, its picture, its specifications, what material is made out of. All those things can be digitized, but it's a solid object that cannot be digitized, the thing itself. So information is anything that is potentially digitizable. So you can take a picture or a song or whatever, and if it is digitizable, that's information. What is knowledge? Knowledge is something related to a human being's understanding or knowing of something. So when I give you a textbook on physics, I have conveyed to you a lot of information, okay? And this textbook has information about physics. It does not have knowledge. The textbook doesn't know. If you spend the time to read the textbook and understand it, then it becomes you're knowledgeable about physics, and that translates into knowledge. Now the thing is, I can give you all the 550,000 textbooks of physics and give it to you on a little USB stick because it's digitized and it only occupies 20 GB. Have I conveyed information to you? Yes, I've conveyed information. Have I conveyed any knowledge to you? No. Knowledge is extremely costly to get. You see, it'll take you years of study before you become a physicist. Although I have conveyed the information in just a USB stick in a few minutes. So what happens is today we are living in an age where information is extremely cheap to access, cheap to create, cheap to store, cheap to transmit. But the problem of learning, of knowledge, is still the same as before. That is the distinction. It is an information age. Information is very, very, there's humongous amounts of it being created. But that doesn't mean that now we are all becoming wise and knowledgeable. After all, we can have a hierarchy of things, like you could start with, say, information, which can be translated, converted into knowledge in a human brain. And that becomes knowledge. But knowledge is not the same as, say, understanding. And understanding is not the same as, let's say, wisdom. Insight, wisdom. These are all different kinds of things, higher level cognitive functions. That is, you can teach a parrot how to say, Polly would like an apple. But that parrot is just, regurgitating information. It does not it doesn't understand what it is saying. But a child will understand a statement. But the same child will not understand a complicated, abstract idea. For that, it has to grow up. Its brain has to mature sufficiently so it can hold within its head, within itself. The brain can hold within itself very complicated notions, ideas, abstractions. And therefore, in one sense, you can say for knowledge to be there, there has to be some basis for it, some intelligence behind that provides a structure within which, when information enters, it becomes translated into knowledge.
Okay, but then let's take the case of a parrot, or in computer science we have this concept of a Chinese room where
Yep.
if a certain
So
English
first we should understand what the Chinese room is. Could you please explain what the Chinese room is?
Yes. So there is a booth in the middle of a marketplace in China where people write down questions on a piece of paper in the native Mandarin script and hand it to the person inside.
Yeah.
That person writes down the answer to that question. I don't know, what is the price of potatoes today, or where is Beijing for that matter, and writes out the piece of paper and hands it back. There is no other interaction between the person inside the booth versus the person outside. Now, let's say an English gentleman who doesn't understand a lick of Chinese walks into that booth and observes the person who's handling the booth at the time. And he gradually learns the patterns that he's doing. So the Chinese character, once you have 3 swishes and a slash, if somebody just writes that in, what I would give back is, I don't know, question mark. So does that mean at that point of time that this English gentleman has knowledge, or does he have information?
Well, he has knowledge here. He doesn't have. He has knowledge in the he understands that if I have to do this, I have to take this action when that particular bit of information comes my way. So that the English gentleman has to learn what actions he needs to take. So in that sense, he has to understand, and the cognitive function of understanding and learning and keeping things in mind and retrieving the information from wherever it is and then putting it back in some other place, doing calculations. That in that sense, the English gentleman has some amount of skills that he has learned, and therefore he has knowledge of how to do things. It is different from what we were talking about, that just because information is being conveyed easily doesn't mean that information has become, that knowledge has become in some sense cheap or cheaper or more of it exists. The amount of knowledge that exists depends upon, is founded upon the information that is available, but that is not sufficient. It's a necessary condition for knowledge that you have information, but information by itself is not sufficient. The reason, Sudipto, we are talking about information and knowledge is very critical to our future discussions about what exactly is an economy, what is the role of knowledge in society or in an economy. And because there is, by confusing knowledge and information, what can happen is it can lead us down the wrong track if we do not distinguish between the two, because these days information is extremely cheap and abundant, which was different from the past, where information was not as abundant. And therefore, we might think that because information is so abundant today, we don't have any problem with knowledge. No, we still have the great problem with knowledge. And the next time when we talk about this, what we are going to talk about is, why is it that centrally planned economies, controlled economies, command economies don't work as well as economies which are decentralized, which don't depend upon orders coming down from the top, what are called market economies? Why are market economies so successful relative to command and control economies? Because if we understand the basis as to why one system works, the market system, and the command and control centralized orders does not work, then we'll be able to make progress. And as you have indicated in the subtitle of our conversations, that is, remind me what the subtitle of our podcast is.
It is Of Human Action and Extended Order.
Yeah. So human action depends upon human knowledge, which of course is based upon information. But just information is not sufficient. What we need is human knowledge, and human action is based on that. And that creates what we call the extended order. And we'll have to talk about what exactly do we mean by the extended order. So the next time you and I talk about this next week, what we'll talk about is what is the use or the function of knowledge in human society. Because once we understand that, we'll be able to get a better grip on how some economies do well and some don't. And there is this knowledge problem that comes in.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it then. Thank you very much, Atanu.
Okay, so you take care and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Hey folks, do you know we have a website now? It's called, yes, you guessed it, www.economicallyspeaking.org. You can leave us comments there as well. We are looking for any questions you might have of our episodes from before, or if you have a specific topic in mind that you would like us to cover. Give us a call. Also, we are available on Twitter at @econspeaking and Facebook, facebook.com/economicallyspeaking. Thank you very much.